Dear learner, we are discussing about the physical techniques for synthesis of a nanomaterial. Friends, in this lecture we have to see electric arc deposition. In previous lecture we discussed about the physical vapor deposition, that is a thermal evaporation. Then sputtering technique. Also we discussed about the pulse laser deposition, ion beam deposition and molecular beam epitaxy. In this lecture, we have to see what is electric arc deposition, advantages of electric arc deposition and disadvantages of electric arc deposition. After attending this lecture, student will be understand about what is this electric arc deposition, its advantages and disadvantages. This is one of the simplest and useful method which is used to produce a large quantity of fullerene and carbon nanotubes. The fullerene structure consists of the carbon, and there is a strong covalent bond between the carbon atom. And this method is used to produce such type of a fullerene and carbon nanotube. This is a fullerene and this is the carbon nanotube. The setup consists of water-cooled vacuum chamber. Okay, there is a water-cooled vacuum chamber. Then electrodes. Generally, we use the graphite electrodes, and the distance between the two electrodes is 1 mm, and the electric current applied across this graphite electrode is about 50 ampere to 100 ampere. That is, very high current is applied across these graphite electrodes. Then the very low potential or voltage is applied across this electrode, and it is about 12 to 15 volt. Generally, the positive electrode itself acts as a source of a material. And the spark is produced in between the two electrodes, that is anode and cathode. Then helium inlet. We use the inert gas helium. When the inert gas helium and pressure inside this vacuum chamber is low, then the fullerene is produced. When the pressure or vacuum pressure is high, then carbon nanotubes are produced. So helium is used. Then there is a diffusion pump which is used to control the vacuum inside the vacuum chamber. Then vacuum gauge is used to measure the vacuum inside the vacuum chamber. Now we have to see all this one by one. The setup consists of water-cooled vacuum chamber, then electrodes to strike an arc between them. That is, the arc is produced in between the two graphite electrodes. The positive electrode itself acts as a source of a material. That is, when the arc is produced, in between the two electrodes, some material is evaporated, and the gap between the two electrodes is increases, and this from this material the fullerene is produced or carbon nanotubes can be produced. If some catalysts are to be used, there can some additional thermal source of evaporation. Here we applied the electric current is about 15 ampere, 50 ampere to 100 ampere in between the two electrodes. Okay, and the temperature produced is about 3500 degrees Celsius. But when some catalyst is used, the additional thermal source of evaporation is required depending upon the desired product inert gas, that is helium, or reaction gas introduction is necessary. Usually the gap between the electrode is 1 mm. That is the gap between the two electrodes, that is the anode and cathode. The high current is about 50 to 100 ampere is a pass from a low voltage power supply, and low voltage power supply is about 12 to 15 volt. Then inert gas pressure is maintained in the vacuum system. Okay, and the pressure is measured by pressure gauge. When an arc is set up, anode material is evaporated. This is possible as long as the discharge can be maintained. The adjustment of an electrode gap without breaking the vacuum became essential as one of the electrode burn. When one electrode burn, generally the positive electrode burn, then the gap between the two electrode is increases. This method was one in which by striking the arc between the two graphite electrodes, it was possible to get fullerene in a large quantity. The fullerene are formed at a low helium pressure and the nanotubes are formed at a high pressure. That is, when pressure inside the vacuum chamber is low, then the fullerene are formed. And when the pressure is high, then nanotubes can be produced. Also, fullerene are obtained by purification of salt collection from inner wall of a vacuum chamber. We collect the salt or the salt which we obtain. We purify that collection from the inner wall of a vacuum chamber, and we get a fullerene. Whereas the nanotubes are found to be formed only at high helium gas pressure and in a controlled portion, central portion of the cathode. No carbon nanotubes are found on the chamber wall. The only fullerene is found on the chamber wall, okay, and which we can purify. But no carbon nanotubes are found on a chamber wall. Some nanoparticles of carbon also are only found around the region where the nanotubes are formed. Temperature reaches at high as 3500 degrees Celsius as the discharge takes place. Okay, so there is a very high temperature because the spark is produced in between the two electrodes. The temperature is about 3500 degrees Celsius. In principle, other nanocrystal or all should be possible to obtain by using this method. We can prepare a different nanocrystals by using this method, but generally this method is mostly found to be suitable for deposition of a fullerene and carbon nanotubes. There are some advantages of this method. This method is used to produce fullerene and carbon nanotubes. It is high purity. Okay, the fullerene which produce or carbon nanotubes which are produced by using this method having high purity. Then there are some disadvantages. First is a poor film quality. If this spark material or electrode material is deposited on a thin film, then we get a film, but this film having poor quality. Then poor arc control, we cannot control arc. Okay, the arc can be controlled only by applying electric current across the electrodes and or voltage across the electrodes. Poor repeatability and reliability. Okay, here when the fullerene is produced or carbon nanotubes is produced at particular instant, such type of carbon nanotubes or fullerene cannot be repeatedly produced after some time. So poor repeatability and reliability. High maintenance. It required high maintenance. Difficult to produce high current in about 50 to 100 amperes and low voltage. These are the some advantages and disadvantages of this electric arc deposition. Then, so in this lecture we discuss electric arc deposition, which is used to produce fluorine and carbon nanotubes. Arc is produced between two electrodes. The positive electrode itself acts as a source material, or that is from this positive material, positive electrodes, the material or from this electrode we get fullerene or carbon nanotubes. Then high current about 50 to 100 ampere and low voltage about 12 to 15 volt is used across the electron. The distance between two electrode is 1 mm. The temperature is about 3500 degrees Celsius. Then low helium pressure is used to produce fullerene. High helium pressure is used to produce nanotubes. The pressure is maintained by using the pressure vacuum pump and measured by using the pressure gauge or vacuum gauge. Then you have some assignment. Explain electric arc deposition in detail. This is the first question. Second question, state advantages and disadvantages of electric arc deposition. Send this assignment on Google Classroom.